Oh, doesn't it feel good to be back, everybody? We are back again for another stream. Now, we're closing in on transfer deadline day in the coming, it must be just probably a couple of days, isn't it? Well, a bit more than that, but still, it's not that long until transfer deadline day. So, for that reason, I do have to just say the streams are going to start getting a little bit less frequent, and we're not actually being watched as much as we used to. I know it's a little bit late at night, so I do apologise for that. But as I actually met a subscriber today. So a big shout out to the amazing Malk, who I met today whilst I was at work. He came up to me and he said, "I know you're from somewhere." And I said, "Do you?" And he went, "I watch your podcast." And I was absolutely blown away. So Malk, thank you. He's in the pub right now, so he's not going to hear this yet. But it's good to be back talking about Forest. Now, it's been an interesting few days, hasn't it? Obviously, the Grimsby win, the signing of Hwang Ui-Jo, who actually won't play for Forest this season. But it's a bit of a strange one with that, because I know that there's a lot of talk going around about FFP and other things as well, as the reasoning for him joining Olympiacos, or because they don't have the money to sign certain players, or they can't spend a certain amount. It's an interesting way of getting around it, but a lot of people that own two clubs do use this strategy. So we'll talk a little bit about that later. We're going to talk about Niakhate and how a journalist over, I think it was in Senegal, or it was a part of Africa, was saying on Twitter that Niakhate could be back in the next 2 to 3 weeks, as confirmed by a member of his family. And then we're going to talk about the new transfer targets, and then we're going to talk a little bit about Spurs. Not too much, because the preview is tomorrow night. I've made sure that I've cleared my diary tomorrow so I can do it all for you tomorrow evening. But for now, we're going to be talking about things that we can talk about this evening. Now, Zahir, Woods, Isaac, Kian, Lee, or Phil, shall I say, Mark, Kev, Robert, Rawlingser, Warren, good to have you all here. I know that Ez is there somewhere as well. He's not said hello yet. I can't believe it, Ez. I can't believe it. Now, we're going to have Dave Asprey joining us a little bit later on, as I'm sure you'll all be very pleased to know. A very knowledgeable gentleman is Dave, and also a very, very good Forest fan. But as someone has just mentioned, let's talk about Renan Lodi. He plays for Atletico Madrid currently, and it's looking like Atletico Madrid have completely changed their stance on letting him go. Now, at first, they weren't that interested in letting him go. Now, I can not confirm, but I can say to a degree that it looks like Atletico Madrid are going to let Renan Lodi leave the club that he's currently at, Atletico Madrid. Now, the reasoning for this, I'm not quite sure, but as Fabrizio Romano says, he says they can have the loan if they wish, but I know that there'll be a fee of around £4 million involved. Now, this was reported by the amazing Jack Talbot, who many of you will know, journalist. He works for the Mirror. I think he works for the Daily Star as well. Very, very good. So I won't say it's 100%. You know, there's things that still have to happen first, but it is an option. It's an option. So I don't know whether it's stalled, Isaac. I know you're mentioning it here. But from what we know at the moment, it's an option for Forest. Forest are interested. Atletico Madrid are interested in him, going out on a loan. But obviously personal terms and other things as well come into play. So there's still things to be done, still things to be worked on. I know that Forest are looking at that left defence kind of area. So Renan Lodi could be somebody to have there. Now, I don't know how long Omar Richards is going to be out for, and there's a lot of rumours going around for how long he could be out for. But it's with him, I would say he's the injury well. I would say I wouldn't kind of go and say Steve Cooper's magic sponge. For him, I would say it could be a bit longer. Whereas Niakhate, though, looks like it could be back in the next 2 to 3 weeks. So I think I had my suspicion it wouldn't be months, as people were saying, till after Christmas. I thought that was a bit much, to be honest, a bit extreme. But from something that happened last week, which I can't talk about on this stream, it did make me think about the fact that Niakhate won't be out as long as people think. So good news, Niakhate out for 2 or 3 weeks and then he'll be back. Won't be back in time for Tottenham, as people keep saying. That's not true. But yeah. And also we're going to talk about the transfer targets. I know that Serge Aurier was mentioned, Sidibe, Reguilon. It doesn't look like Reguilon's going to join the club. It looks like he instead will go to Atletico Madrid. at the moment, he's a target for Atletico Madrid, probably on a loan or maybe even a permanent basis. But it looks like he's going to go there and let Lodi come to Forest. So lots of stuff going on at the moment, in specific with the left back area or the defence area. We know that Forest were also interested in Japhet Tanganga from Tottenham. So lots of players being thrown around in the ether, but have any actually been signed? Only Hwang Ui-Jo, who joins for around £4 million from Bordeaux, who have had a bit of a financial problem over in France. I think they've actually been relegated a couple of divisions the last time I checked. So for them, difficult losing one of their best players. He's 29 as well, so he's not young, but I think we're not going to see much of him in a Forest shirt, let's say. I think it's to do with FFP over in Greece. I'm not sure how it works, but there is a big reason for this happening. So now having a look at some of these comments. Yeah, Renan Lodi, it does look like it could be happening. It looked as if it was off completely just a few days ago, but as Fabrizio Romano now reports, alongside actually Jack Talbot reporting it, who I got in contact with yesterday, and he told me that the Renan Lodi deal at the time wasn't very far down the line, but it seems as though they're making some advancements, but nothing major just yet. So definitely a target, definitely in talks, but nothing solid yet. Now, good evening, everybody. Adam, Slee, Isaac, everybody that's here. Ez, I've missed you too, my brother. I'm sorry I've not been so active. I've done some crazy hours this week. Like yesterday, the reason I didn't stream yesterday is because I did at least 15 hours and I did 2 jobs. So saving up for a car and lessons and stuff at the moment, it's a bit much. And also I'm looking at investing in some new technology to make the YouTube channel a little bit better. And also, if you can, guys, there is currently a competition going. It's called the Best Young Creator. It's by the Football Content Awards. Because this is it with the content awards. I just want to say I appreciate everybody that voted for me, because at the start I didn't even really know what it was. I wasn't that interested in doing it because I thought I'm just going to enjoy it and not worry about awards and stuff. But then I got some really kind people offering to vote for me, and as they did, like Dave, for example, and Kel. So I want to say thank you to you guys that started it off, and so many have voted after that as well. So big thanks to all of you that have. I'll make sure put in a link as well. But yeah, I really appreciate that. Sergio Aurier had his medical. Now, I spoke to David Kent, and he told me and this was about a day or two ago, and he said that there hasn't been any medical completed. That being said, it was a day and a half ago. Likelihood is there's been some advancement on it, and the Athletic was saying that we've had talks. So Sergio Aurier, I would say likely that he will join. 1-year deal with an optional second as well. Some saying a 2-year deal, but I can only see it being a 1 year with an optional another as well. So be interesting to see what happens. So let's have a look. Any news on Houssem Aouar? Nothing new at the moment, to be honest, Toby Tales. From what I would say, I doubt that he would come. If it was going to be anybody that would join Forest, I would say it'd be James Garner. But even then, that doesn't look like it's actually really going to happen. So this is it. Houssem Aouar, very good player, very capable player, still a lot of potential. He's only 24. But that being said, I would say we're pretty stacked in the midfield. And if we were going to buy anybody, I think we'd be closer to James Garner. But it looks like he's going to be going to either Everton or Southampton. So interesting. Evening, Peter. Hope you're doing well. Shout out to the media man. Thank you very much, UK Tube. This guy's been here since day one, so much appreciated for your kindness. Are you getting bored of streaming without commitment? I mean, I don't agree with that, Tim. I think that's a bit harsh, to be honest. Because to be honest with you, I mean, Dor's got a job, and whereas I'm studying, and then this is no discredit to Dor because I love Dor, but college, I work 2 or 3 jobs. I do my YouTube. I run a news company. I've got a lot going on at the moment. So I don't agree with that. No, I do commit a lot to this, actually. If you look at the amount of hours I've put in this month or the last month or so, it's been a lot of hours, even times where I've had to cancel a lot of things with family and stuff to come and do this, because I enjoy it. So, no, I don't agree with that at all. And and I do put in the hard work and stuff. And at the end of the day, there's 88 of you in now, and it's nearly 11 o'clock. So I really, really appreciate that. But Tim, don't agree with you on that one, my friend. Just saying. It was today, 1 year deal. Interesting. That's what I would have thought. 1 year deal with an optional, another after that as well. Yeah, definitely another one or two signings. I think probably Renan Lodi and then Aurier, and then probably another one as well. To be honest, I don't think Japhet Tanganga will come. I think if Milan are in for him, I'm pretty sure they won the Italian league last year. So is it the Scudetto or whatever it's called? He's going to want to go to them over us. There's no doubt. And I think any player would really at this point in time. But, Forest have got to establish themselves as a top team before they can really consider players joining them over the likes of AC Milan, really. So it's a tough one. But, Tanganga, decent player. But, yeah, definitely 100%, Jack. You're right, 100%. And we won't hear about them. Forest did so well keeping Morgan Gibbs-White's transfer under wraps for as long as they did. Yeah, there's definitely a few close, no doubts. But it's I think when it comes to the transfer market, there's a lot that we do hear about, but a lot of it's smokescreen. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see. But a lot of it, I would say, is smokescreen. I think Hussein Aouar was actually smokescreen in the end, but it fooled us all, didn't it? Fooled us all. Now, just before Dave, the legend Astbury, joins us, I'm just going to answer a couple more. I can see him smiling in the lobby now. He's ready. Oh, look, he's giving us a wave. You guys can't see it, but I can. Jimmy, evening. Good man. Joe, I hope you're doing well. Thank you, Phil, for your support. And Tim, I just want to say, I do check my info before tweeting, and I know that you're a troll account, by the way, so I'm not really that bothered. But you can, if you want, I've got the journalist's number. I spoke to him this evening and this morning as well, and he confirmed to me from the member of the entourage that he's going to be back earlier than a month as well. So not too worried about what you're saying, Tim, to be honest, but thank you for popping up and increasing the engagement on my thing. Keep up the good work, Tim Nicol. Thank you very much. And we won't talk about Chris Sutton's comments, but we will talk about the amazing Dave Astbury, who joins the channel. Dave, how are you feeling?
It's the first time I've ever been on a late night chat show, Jamie. I was holding out for Graham Norton, but I think I've got the better deal, mate.
I think I've got the better deal. I mean, I'm not going to say how much I'm paying, Dave, to make this appealing, but let's just say that 15-hour shift I did yesterday, I've still got another 9 more to do. So he's not cheap. I'm telling you, that tea he's drinking now, it's proper. I'm telling you.
Earl Grey, mate. You get out what you put in, Jamie.
Oh, you absolutely do. Is it really Earl Grey?
It is, mate. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Look at him. He's posh, mate. Isn't he? Wow.
I have my moments.
He does have his moments. He's going to fall to sleep halfway through this, I know. Hopefully it's not me putting him to sleep. Let's hope. But let me ask you, actually, because someone brings up a very good point. Chris Sutton saying that we're going to get thrashed all the time. But in specific, he said Tottenham 5-0. Now, there's no denying Tottenham are a very good team with a very good set of players and also a very, very good manager. Very well-run club, especially in the last couple of years. But I think 5-0 is a bit of an unfair assessment for me because I do think that Forest have got a lot of fight in them and a lot of drive, and they've got the home atmosphere as well. I don't remember the last time that Tottenham did beat us 5-0, if ever. So I do want to know, what are your thoughts on that score prediction?
Well, to be honest with you, Jamie, I read Chris Sutton's piece on the BBC, and actually, if you read the 2 or 3 paragraphs before it, he's actually quite complimentary about Forest. And so when I got to the end of it and he said 5-0, I was a bit like, is the man having a schizophrenic episode? Is he having some kind of mental breakdown? Has he the intelligence and memory of a goldfish? Has he forgotten what he wrote, 4 or 5 lines previously? And I've also read some comments he made, I think, before the start of the season, where he said he felt that Forest would have enough to stay up. So I think it's more about Chris Sutton than it is about us. I don't think he's got anything against us. I just think he's, like a lot of these guys in the media, they are desperate to make a name. They're desperate to have the spotlight thrust upon them. And a lot of them play the game. I think it's a strategy. If I say something controversial, if I say something designed to get people's backs up, then I get more, clickbait, I think is the word, Jamie. So I kind of, like I say, he said some nice things, but what he did say, he said that he felt that the way Forest played and that the way that, you know, Steve and the coaching staff and the lads are going to approach it might play into Tottenham's hands, which I don't know. I mean, like you just said, absolutely correctly, Jamie, that Tottenham are a fine team with great players. You know, if you're a neutral, you know, you can go and you can say, well, I've seen Harry Kane, I've seen Heung-min Son, I've seen Kulusevski, I've seen Betancourt, I've seen Ivan Perisic. You know, the challenge facing Forest is enormous. But I watched Steve's presser today, and I make a point of watching Steve's presser before every game, Jamie, like I'm sure you do. And I get nothing but common sense. I get nothing but you know, down to earth, feet on the ground. You know, next man up, one game at a time. Steve gives the media nothing to bite on. He's in fact the polar opposite of Chris Sutton, whereas Chris Sutton is like feeding them stuff, Jamie. Steve's got his cards not only close to his chest but underneath his t-shirt, and I love what Steve says. And you know, if it was me, and I've run teams in the past, I'd be sticking those comments to Chris Sutton's on the wall, mate. But I don't think Steve and the lads will bother about it. I think they seem to have developed a nice little spirit. You know, given that so many of them are unfamiliar with each other, they seem to have developed a nice spirit. They'll be in their bubble. They'll be thinking purely about themselves and how to engage with us on Sunday, and to make it as difficult as possible for a tremendous team with a great coach, and you know, possibly pulling off an upset. Whether I can see it, I don't know. You know, it's hard always says Forest, but looking ahead, Jamie, you kind of look at the two teams man for man, and you think it's an almighty. In fact, the next 4 days are probably the hardest 4 days. 4 days. So Sunday to Wednesday, probably the hardest 4 days in the history of Nottingham Forest for probably since back in the day. Before you were born, Jamie, you know what I mean?
A bit before, I was going to say, and I was looking back, and before, I know Joe's waiting in the lobby, so don't worry, Joe. We'll add you very soon, my friend. But I was looking back, actually, Dave, today, in fact, at a result in 2030. I don't really remember many things before the age of 10, but this result always stayed with me. It was Huddersfield 1, Nottingham Forest 6, and Simon Cox and Radi Majewski absolutely ran the show. You know, and I just think to myself, there's been some right rubbish times over the years with Forest, but you know, there's some really good ones as well. And that one was one of them. And I just want to say as well, thank you to Andrew for your kind donation. Welcome to the show, my friend. Keith, good to have you. Everybody that's joining in, the amazing Dave Asprey is with me, and Joe Prattam will be with me as well. And now I'm just going to add Joe in. But I do want to know, gentlemen, sorry, how am I going to do this? I'm going to do it like this, right? But we'll do it like this. Let me ask you this question, and I want to go with Joe first because he's joining on. Can I just ask you, how important do you think the media handling that Steve Cooper seems to excel at, how important do you think that is to keeping morale good within the team?
I think it's critical. I think if you were to purely take the pundits' views on how players and teams are performing and how they think we're going to do in the season, and then base it also off of everyone's immediate reactions on Twitter from just like the last game at Everton, where everyone was just ransacking on Worrell for a couple of mistakes that he made. I think if that kind of went unchecked and Steve Cooper kind of didn't say anything about it and didn't get behind the team, I think then we would be in the situation that a lot of people were trying to pen us into, where we're bringing in a lot of new players and there's going to be a lot of unrest in the dressing room. But he just addresses it and bats it away. And you can see by the way that he addresses the media, you know that's how he's drilling the team every day in the changing rooms and before every game, at halftime every game, and then after each match, you know he's going to be talking to those group of lads and trying to keep them, even after a win, he'll keep them leveled. You see, even after every win, there'll always be points that we could have improved on. And I just think that's the magic that he has whenever he's doing any interview. He's always very level. And he's always focused on the next game. He just he'll make comments on what's happened, what's been good, what's not good, but his main focus is ahead. He's never lost in the present. He never dulls down or gets bogged down in what's happened in the past or what's happening in the game. It's right, now we need to look forwards. And you just know that in every press review, as a Forest fan, I absolutely love and I hang on every word that he says in every interview. He's just an absolute wizard on the mic, and I love it.
Absolutely. I mean, you're making him sound like a star singer now. You're making him sound like he's next up on the X Factor.
He probably could be if he.
Actually, I've seen him on the guitar.
Yeah.
Do you know what? Watching that video back, I went on my Facebook that night and I went, "This can't be real." I showed my mum and she went, "Is that Steve Cooper, Jay?" And I'm like, "It is, Mum. It is. It's not Liam Gallagher. They look a bit different, or Noel. They do look a little bit different." But Dave, sorry to get back off the Oasis chat. Obviously, it's quite difficult, isn't it, for clubs to avoid the media speculation and, oh, this is going on. And it's not just the media companies, it's Twitter as well. I've seen things in the last 3 or so weeks saying there's been unrest in the back room, the changing rooms with this person. There's been unrest with this person, or I'm in the know and I know there's something going on at the club with this player. And you just think, how on earth has Steve Cooper and the team cultivated such a good atmosphere in the change room from what we can see, despite all of this, even from Talk Sport and things on Twitter? How on earth has he done such a good job of keeping it so positive?
I think he's just a master communicator, Jamie. Everything Joe said, I was nodding along, because Joe, as he always does, talks a lot of sense. He's a kind of a Cooperian sort of level head, like Steve is. I just think what he does brilliantly, he doesn't give free gifts to opposition. He doesn't give free gifts to lazy media tropes. I mean, you can understand in a way where some of these guys are going from, because so many of the promoted sides who've done what Forest are in the process of doing at the moment have failed. And obviously Fulham set a precedent with what they did a few years. And so because a lot of these guys are so focused on the Premier League and didn't pay much attention to the Championship last year, they're kind of looking around, reaching around for sort of themes and trends and all this kind of stuff. And I think where Steve's coming from is that he'll protect his lads by he's not said in any of the games. In fact, since he came into the club back in September last year, he hasn't given an opposition anything to work with. He hasn't put a word out of place. He hasn't given anybody, any of the rabid dogs out there, he hasn't given them anything to feed on. And I think he's brilliant. It's like us three, we love our club and we follow it closely, and we like to know what's going on. But I watch Steve, and he's really good at the enigmatic stuff. I mean, they ask him about, is anybody coming in before Sunday? And he's like, I don't know about that. Or, what is success to you? And he said today, well, I can only see Tottenham Hotspur. So beating Tottenham Hotspur is success. And what they're doing, he's actually starving them. So they're kind of going out and growing their own stuff to feed on, because Steve's giving them nothing. Tatey doesn't give them anything. I've not had Alan Tate ever speak. Andy Reid's not doing it. Jamie Robinson's not doing it. None of the players are doing it. Forest actually are a nice, tight-knit unit. They're bringing the new guys in. They're looking like the new guys look like they belong. I mean, Emmanuel Dennis is handing his shirt to kids at Grimsby, a lovely touch. For example, Remo Freuler looked like he'd been there ages, and I just think, I've said all along, Steve is a brilliant social animal. He's a brilliant people person. He knows how to, he's got that empathy to understand everybody's needs. I watched him the other night. It was a wonderful moment at the end of the game where young Zach Abbott, who came on, made his debut. The kid is like, I think he's even younger than you, Jamie, and you're a young
he
fella.
Is. 16 years and 5 months he is. He's incredible.
So at the end of the game, Steve being Steve, he's obviously dealing with the Morgan Gibbs-Whites and the Jesse Lingards in the club. But then he went to Zach Abbott, he put his arm around him, and I saw him point to us in the away end at Grimsby, say, go and get your moment. You know what I mean? And he's just got a brilliant way of dealing with everybody. And I think the reason that so many have come is because they want to be in Steve's orbit. And I just think he's, what he does in tactics and all that kind of stuff is good. But I just think in terms of the avoiding any kind of faux pas in the media, he's an absolute master. So Conte doesn't know anything about him really. So, and Conte's a great manager. Let's Conte is one of the world's finest coaches. And they asked Steve about him today, and Steve said a lot of respect for him. You know, he gave him nothing. You know, they asked him, I think, about handshakes after what happened with Tuchel. And Steve was saying, oh, well, you know, I'll just shake his hand. And Steve sort of batted it away. And I just think he's, you know, I think the greatest compliment I can pay Steve Cooper is that Brian Clough would love what he's doing. Completely different person to Brian Clough. Because Brian, you know, Brian said certain things and he got his response, but I think he'd have a lot of, I think Brian Clough would be looking down, and I think he'd love what Steve Cooper does. I also think he'd love what Eddie Howe does. I think he also would love what Graham Potter does. Those guys would really appeal to Brian, but no, Steve is just, he's kind of building this wall, and Tottenham are coming, and I think the only thing that Tottenham really know about what they're facing is that they're going to get 28,000 people screaming blue murder at them. And you know, West Ham didn't particularly deal with it well. I mean, Tottenham should win, but the floating factor is how they deal with hopefully the noise that we can create. So, but yeah, it's no, Cooper just impresses me all the time, like Joe says.
Oh, well, I want to touch on a couple of points you made, actually. Now, Steve Cooper is a manager, from the stats that I've gathered. Now, do correct me if I'm wrong, but it's 48 games, 28 wins, 12 draws, and 8 losses, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure that's the results.
Yeah.
I mean, that is fantastic, right?
Yeah.
Now, I want to talk about more media spotlight in particular, just before. Liam's had a haircut here. I'm just looking in the lobby. Liam has had a haircut. You're looking fresh, my friend. I'll add you in about 2 or 3 minutes, and we'll show off this haircut. And don't worry, I'm getting mine cut soon. I know people always say it to me, but the media spotlight, and you mentioned briefly Graham Potter and Eddie Howe, and I think as well Steve Cooper, not just English managers, but just in particular younger managers that I don't think really get the credit they deserve, because I think Newcastle as well, they're a very good team and there's a lot of positive things about them. But there's also, it always comes back to the whole, but they're backed by Saudi Arabia. They're the richest club in the world and all this. And Simon Jordan saying they spent 150 million and it's like, well, hold on a minute. Newcastle are a great team without that money, right? They've bought some good players and they've spent a bit of money. Fair enough. But the quality of the players they've bought is brilliant. They've not invested in the short term. They've invested in the long term. They've got a young demographic overall. You know, they've got experienced players sprinkled throughout the team. And, you know, they came up against Man City, one of the best teams, if not the best team in the world, the other night, and almost thrashed them, you know. So I think for me, I think St James's Park is a beautiful stadium. And then obviously you've got Brighton as well, who are doing things that many would never expect. But you've got to hail the work of 2 very, very good English managers there. And then also you've got to look at the Welsh manager in Steve Cooper, who has done amazing things at Nottingham Forest. So let's not look at the amount of money that Forest spend and say, oh, it's ridiculous they're doing a Fulham. Let's look at the amount of players they've lost. Let's look at how much they've spent on average, which is just under £9 million per player. Let's look at the quality of player they've bought. If anybody would have said to you after these games, how much would you have paid for Mangala? You would have said nowhere near 12 million. You would have said way more. But they paid 12 million for Mangala and spent sensibly, and now it's paying off. So as much as I think Tottenham is going to be a very hard game, as Dave rightly points out, Conte's a fantastic manager. He doesn't know a lot about Steve Cooper, and Steve Cooper, very calm and collected. He knows what the team need to do to beat Tottenham, but he also knows what could happen. But he doesn't go in there going, oh God, it's Tottenham, let's all fear them. No. He goes in there saying, play your game, do your best. And this is what Gary Birtles said on the podcast as well. He says, you can only do your best. You know what I mean? Go and do what you can do, you know, and I'm sure he'll be saying near on the same thing, you know. So
and Jamie, if I could just, sorry, mate, to interrupt your excellent flow there, mate. I mean, he did it, Arsenal in January, Leicester in February, Liverpool, who were on their way to the Champions League final, he did it in March, and he will approach this as he did with West Ham and Newcastle. Steve, I imagine Steve's the sort of guy who likes doing crosswords and puzzles and all this kind of stuff. It's an intellectual challenge for him. So he's thinking, like last year, it was, here's Mikel Arteta, here's Brendan Rodgers, here's Jurgen Klopp, here's David Moyes, here's Antonio Conte. Let's test myself against the best in the business. And they're great managers, all of those guys that we mentioned. They've all won plenty of things, and been whatever. So Steve's looking at it not as something to be. He says he's embracing it, and I believe him. He is. He's he'll be saying to him, "I'd like to think, let's go and have a crack at these. We've got nothing to lose." I mean, Chris Sutton says 5-0. Merce says 3-0. Sportsmole tonight have said 2-0. It's actually a pressure-free game for Forest. They're probably the hardest fixtures we've faced, Tottenham and Manchester City. But if you flip it over, everybody believes that Forest are going to get zip from both games. Now, if Forest book all these trends and book this newly promoted teams of fodder for the likes of Tottenham and City, then the media, they can kind of make their own agenda. They can change the agenda within the media. And I just think that Steve will be saying to him, "We've got nothing to lose, lads. Let's have a crack. Jesse, you fancy a crack, don't you? Morgan, you fancy a crack. Brendan can run at them. And they've got, certainly on Sunday. I mean, the Etihad's a completely different matter, but on Sunday, Tottenham Hotspur will have 30,000 Reds screaming at them. And if Forest were to score early, then it'd be really, really interesting. I mean, I do think the first goal on Sunday is crucial. But then again, having said that, if Forest were to go behind the way they are attitudinally, who's to say they couldn't get back?
I 100% agree. And I just want to say as well, before Liam comes on, and we're going to talk about the Niakhate situation next. So welcome, Eve. I hope you're doing well. We'll talk about Niakhate in just a moment. And Steve Cooper is a gentleman. It's just a shame.
Absolutely.
It's a shame that I've not been able to have a sit down with him and do a podcast with him, but maybe in the future, who knows? But I think Tottenham, and this is no criticism because obviously they're a very good team, but I think even they have underperformed, so far this season. That Chelsea game, they were, lucky to not come off and lose that game. They could have done a lot better. So of course they're in the stride and knowing they're a good side, but there's still something there that I think Steve Cooper could really, really exploit in terms of the Tottenham attitude and motivation. I think, it depends who's up for it more on the day. Do you know what I mean? It's not about whose squad's more expensive or who's got the better stadium. It's about who's ready for it on the day and who's in good form. So it's a difficult one, but Forest can overcome that challenge. But I'm going to add Liam in just now. Now, Liam, you're looking fresh, my friend. He's had the hair off. You're looking very good.
Egg, to be fair.
Don't say that. Come on, let's all be kind. Whoa, what's that you're drinking there, Joe? You can't be drinking live on stream, my friend. What is it? Tell us.
It's a can that I'm just going to keep on covering completely with my fist, so you can't tell what it is.
Oh, that's naughty, that is. It's not Scrumpy Jack's, is it? I thought it was.
Oh, no.
No, I'm catching you there, my friend.
100% canned water.
Canned water. Look at him, he's posh. Now, Liam, talking posh, he's got the posh haircut going on. He's got the posh kit going on as well. Now, let me talk to you about Moussa Niakhate, a player that I'm sure we all rate here. A very good player, provides a lot of pace. In fact, someone that I think would have been key against Everton. I think he would have been really, really important. And that's no discredit to Worrell or Cook or anybody. Things that can be improved on, but I don't think there's any right to abuse them for that, as people have. Now, Liam, let me ask you, 2 or 3 weeks till Niakhate's back, not 2 or 3 months, as confirmed by a member of his family, by a gentleman called Papa Mahmoud, French journalist. What are your thoughts on that? And in general, Steve Cooper's injury strategy, because it seems as though he can tell you a player's out for 3 years or his career's over, and he's playing at the weekend. So, what are your thoughts on that, Liam?
I think it's quality's coming back early. I mean, he was the difference, in my opinion, against West Ham. He was quality, and if he was playing against Everton, we don't concede that goal.
Yeah, agreed.
So let me ask you,
he's cutting that ball out.
Have you ever seen Michail Antonio so uncomfortable?
I thought, no, I haven't.
I'm not sure I have.
Calls him a proven Premier League striker who is rapid, isn't he? And European striker as well, not just at club level. But
have you ever noticed as well, if you've ever watched the training? Now, and there was something interesting I saw floating around Facebook, and it was about players in training, and it was actually about Harry Kane and Heung-min Son. and they were talking about how players act in training. Now, Harry Kane was kind of just passing along, very slow, just kind of getting training over and done with. Whereas Heung-min Son, he was going for it. He was fast. He was pacing. It was like he was playing a game with the passes. With Niakhate in training, I always feel he gives 110% just in training. I always feel like he's passionate. I always feel, if you see them doing the races, he's always the first one to win it, which for a centre-back is quite something, and obviously having that pace injection at the back where you would say it's a little bit slower to a degree. Now, Joe, I want to ask you the question, just as a general question and not a moan by any means. There's been players over the last 10 or, however many years, in fact, throughout football's history that haven't been ridiculously pacey. Like, look at John Terry, one of the best defenders in the Premier League. Nemanja Vidic, not particularly pacey, but they've always managed to take down pacey players and actually put in a really good performance. So I do want to ask you, despite maybe having a bit slower pace, do you not think maybe in just a little bit more work on positioning and actually they could overcome the pace issue in the defence?
Yeah, I think watching actual football and not trying to base a game of actual football off FIFA, pace is completely irrelevant if you're a centre-back and you know exactly how you need to position yourself and where you need to try and guide the player on the ball who is going to be naturally quicker than you. You have to try and guide him in a certain direction, so you try and stop him and hold him up. As soon as you kind of take that pace and momentum away from him, if you're trying to guide him away and you try and make him stop and wait for other players to catch up on him, you've then got the better in that position, so then you can step up onto him. So as soon as you can get into that role where you know where the player's trying to go, you know that he's going to be able to beat you if he's just running in a straight line. But if you can stop him from getting to that point, like you'll see, if you watch like clips of some of the best centre-backs going around at the moment, like Virgil van Dijk, he'd be playing, if he's in a Champions League game against like Kylian Mbappe or Vinicius Jr., they've got the pace on toast against him every day of the week. If it's a straight foot race, if they're chasing the ball, he's not going to win it. But if they're running towards him or even alongside him, he will usher them away so that they then have to start to think about trying to pull out a trick or a skill or look for a pass that someone's coming behind. So it is purely about positioning and guiding them away. And that's what the best centre-backs will do.
So Dave, and I know you will have made this observation because I know you. You're sharp-eyed. You know what you're talking about. He's got good lenses.
I've got glasses on.
He's got glasses. And for me, I've just had my lenses changed in my glasses, and I feel like a new man, Dave. I tell you, I feel. Look, it is. I feel brilliant. Now, you would have made this eagle-eyed observation that when Scott McKenna is receiving a run just behind him from Anthony Gordon or Damari Gray, anybody, he's always got his arm out and he's keeping a metre or so away from that player. Now, for me, that's so important. And people don't look at that enough. They just go, Joe Worrell, or but they forget the good things that are going on in the defence and the fact that Scott McKenna actually always positioned himself right against Everton. So let me ask you about this. Do you think maybe Worrell just needs to take a page out of McKenna's book in terms of his positioning and maybe just watch him in training and just look at how he keeps a metre or two from him and the player to prepare for that? Because Scott McKenna's incredibly underrated for me.
Well, I think the great testament to Scott McKenna is how little he gets talked about. It's almost like there he is, this sound fella. He just gets on with his business, and we don't have to kind of talk about Scott because Scott is so consistent. He's so solid, so reliable. We all trust him. Mistakes he's made, like on one hand. And as you say, Jamie, you make a really good point in a way that what Scott's doing, I know he's just sticking an arm out, but he's kind of attending to one side of what he's doing on the pitch, but then he's aware of the other side, even though he might not have his eyes on it. With his arm out, he's kind of signalling. Now, if we're talking about Joe in particular, I made the point the other night that Joe will be his own harshest critic. Nobody needs to tell Joe Worrell about things. We don't need anybody piling in on him. We don't need anybody analysing this and putting diagrams up and drawings and all this kind of stuff. Joe will know he got the header wrong last week. He'll know he picked up an early yellow like he did at Newcastle. And Joe will be working hard to make sure. Joe Worrell's the captain. It's beholden upon him to work harder than anybody. So Joe will have worked this week in training like a madman to make sure that he's ready for Harry Kane and Sonny and Kulusevski and whoever else Tottenham bring to the party, and they're going to bring a fair few. You know, what gets forgotten is that man was man of the match against Liverpool last year in the cup. Sorry, earlier this year. You know, Virgil van Dijk was on the field, Konate was on the field, you know, Firmino was on the field. There were like other people, you know, hellish players on the field, and Joe Worrell was the man of the match. So, you know, I mean, he will be looking at what Scott does. I tell you, the key man, if he ends up playing with Moose being out, and I love what you say about Forest's injury pronouncements. It's like you say, Jamie, Moose and Niakhate will be out until the year 25, and then the Forest medical team, who are a quiet marvel. I absolutely think our medical staff are wonderful. You know, it became a lovely standing joke last season that the best of the lot was like McKenna will be out for 6 weeks. We had the international break, and we went to Blackpool, and there he was, and he was awesome. So, you know, Moose, if we can get Moose back, I mean, you know, Liam's point about Moose, he was superb. Moose was against Antonio. He's a serious unit. He's physical and built like an outhouse. You know, so Moose.
I think that'll be our difference this year. He's a player that will not give anyone any respect.
No,
and that's what he did against West Ham.
Yeah,
he bullied Rice. He bullied Antonio.
Yeah,
and what more do you want from a defender? Not to respect a striker and stand off him.
Yeah, and that's what we need. But I think going into Sunday, there's I think Cookie's experience. If it is Cookie to play in the middle of the back, I mean, Cookie's played against all these guys before for Bournemouth, and I like to think that Joe and Cookie and Scott and I guess Nico and Harry, they'll all be getting together and like, Cookie, how do we go about this? You know, and I've always said that Cookie's the coach on the field. I mean, you know, I think he's been one of our best signings. Yeah, everybody will just go, yeah, he's 30, so he's slow. Yeah, he's this, that, and so he's slow. Again, lazy stuff. You know, I mean, back in the day, if we go all the way back, some of these people now who are moaning will have hated Brian Clough for signing Kenneth Burns and Larry Lloyd and Dave Needham. Why are you signing these donkeys? And those guys went on to win 2 European Cups and were awesome, you know. And I just think Steve Cook, he's been there and he's seen it, he's done it. He's dealt with Harry Kane. I think he's played against Sonny, you know, and he will be able to give some advice to the rest, to say, well, this is how we go about it. And I think he's key man. I mean, if Moose were fit, I don't think Steve would start. But as it is, next man up. So, you know, it's going to be, I mean, none of us are kidding ourselves. None of the four of us, none of the thousands out there who might be, you know, who are thinking about Sunday. We're not kidding ourselves. It's going to be an almighty task, as it will be on Wednesday night. But Newcastle proved against Manchester City last week that nobody's invincible. Yeah. Newcastle set out a blueprint that, why, you know, Newcastle, Eddie Howe said, go at them, have a crack. You know, and you know, they've got Alan St. Maximin, we've got Brennan. You know, why can't we, you know, use his pace to unsettle Tottenham? I mean, it's a fascinating game in prospect, really.
And I do want to talk about that as well, because I think that Johnson gets overlooked a lot, and there's always just, and I don't even know why people do it, because last season, you know, I'm pretty sure that oh, and by the way, Malk has just joined the chat. Good to have you. Now, Malk, I actually saw in the restaurant earlier. He pulled me over, and as I was just finishing work, and he went, I know you from somewhere. I said, no, you don't, do you? And he goes, from your YouTube, and I was absolutely made up. So, Malk, good to have you here. That's the first time he's commented as well, so thank you for doing that. Now, sorry, but back onto the point. Johnson, I always see a bit negative comments about it, you know, and I've spoke to, you know, even other fans about it as well, and people saying, oh, he gets lost in these games or this and this. And it's like, well, I don't think he actually does. I think he did quite a lot against Everton, to be completely honest. If you think many strikers could have done a lot against that Newcastle defence when all we were doing was long balls, how on earth do you expect Brennan Johnson to beat Dan Burn at a long ball? You can't, right? West Ham, he was unlucky to have not scored that one, just so slightly offside. You know, if you put it into perspective, he's actually had 2 goals in 3 games, which for a new striker in the Premier League, don't forget he's moved up from League One to Championship to Premier League. How many strikers have you seen do that in that quality? And last season, he got 19 goals and however many assists. And, you know, between Morgan Gibbs-White and Brennan Johnson, there's over 40 goal contributions in 40-odd games, you know, which is stats, you know, and it's amazing. So I think you've got to give Brennan some credit. You know, you've got to say how well he's doing, even in the Premier League now. And look at the angle of the goal that he actually scored against Everton and the way he did it. was absolutely sensational. Dave, if it was you, because I know you're in your prime right now, right? You would have shot it to the left-hand side of the goal and it would have gone in anyway. But what does Brennan do? The goalkeeper's diving right and he still shoots it right. He's got guts to do that, you know. So, Dor, welcome. It's good to have you as well.
Amy,
yeah.
You know about that goal he scored at Everton. I mean, we were me and the lads I was stood with. We were like right down the bottom of the away section, 6 rows from the front, and it was kind of we were behind Brennan when he sort of rolled it in, and his accuracy was just unerring. And it reminded me, and you lads will remember this. It reminded me of the goal he scored at Bramall Lane in the semi-final first leg where Lolly set it up. And Brennan ran onto it, and it's almost like he worked out the trigonometry before he'd even put it in the back of the net. It was just a beautiful thing, and he did the same thing again. And I think, I mean, and actually, the point you make, Jamie, about the goal he had disallowed against West Ham, I mean, that was a beautiful finish because Fabianski was coming to clear him out, and to just lift it over him. I mean, he was so unlucky not to score that. But I think some people want Brennan to be like full on 90 minutes. Now, the way Brennan is, you know, if you, to be honest, you could have 5 or 10 minutes of Brennan doing what Brennan does at his best, and that's worth 90 minutes of a lot of other players. That's why he's in the Wales side. That's why he's going to the World Cup. Yeah. So Rob Bates sees something in him, and I think we
saw some of Brennan that we haven't seen before at Everton. To be honest, he was pressing a lot more.
Yeah,
like he looked like up for it against Everton. Like.
Yeah,
he was pressing everything. I saw a couple of times he intercepted stuff, and obviously scored that goal, which is a proper striker's goal. That is.
Oh yeah, it was a great finish.
Well, you both bring up really good points because I think that he's quite a shy person, you know, overall, you know, and he just gets on with the job, which I really like about him. I don't think, you know, he's not really out there or ridiculous or, you know, ever. I don't even know how many times he's even spoken to the media properly, you know, outside of an interview after a big match. You know, he's quite a quiet person. I just like how he just gets on with it and still loves the club so much. And despite, you know, even all the animosity going on in January with potential transfers and stuff, he's still committed to Forest. And I think that's really important. And people don't respect that enough. But Joe, I do want to ask you the question then on the, you know, the kind of subject of attacking players, in particular midfielders. Now, Lingard, for me, good player. He's done his job. I think quite simple in the passes that he's done. He's been accurate, whatever. But he's still, to me, and I don't know how you gents feel about this, but he didn't look particularly match fit still against Everton. Obviously, a lot of time out, but he didn't look fully there yet. I don't think he's fully hit the ground running, if you like. I think he's not far off, but I think he's still got a little bit to go. Now, Joe, how do you feel about that? And also, to add to that, do you think Lingard and Morgan Gibbs-White can play in the same midfield?
So I'll treat them as kind of two independent questions.
Yeah.
The first one, is he match fit? Does he still look a bit off the pace? Yes, he does. And that's because Man United kept him on a bench for a year when he could have gone somewhere else. So obviously he's been out of playing in a, like, you can do what you want on a training pitch, but there's no way you can simulate playing in a real live game situation where there's actual stakes on the line in front of 20 or 30,000 people. You can't simulate that for whatever you want to try and do. So he is going to be a bit off the pace. It is going to take some catching up. And I think we kind of saw that in some of the preseason games where he kind of looked on it and he was playing some passes that were very intelligent from the Premier League, but the rest of the team weren't caught up to him at that point. And now it kind of seems like the team's caught up and they've now shifted up that gear. But now his match fitness is now going to be one of the weaker links. But I have no doubt that he's going to be able to catch up with that. And I think it is just a case of it's 3 games in. We can't really be flogging him down and saying he's a dead weight in that cam role. I think as soon as we kind of get him up to that match fitness and keep him positive and upbeat, he will be a key player in that attacking midfield role. And I could see him working together with him, Gibbs-White and Brennan Johnson. If we were sticking with a 5 at the back and then trying to play 3 up front, I think those 3 kind of interchanging together rather than having set definitive roles in that triangle up front, rather than having 2 set strikers and a cam or 2 more wing players and then a false line. I think having them in a rotation where if some of them are pressing, and then if they start to get a bit tired, someone else can then take over that press. They can come a bit more deep, and then it sets up a completely different triangle. How confusing is that going to be as a back line if you think you're committed to marking one player, and then all of a sudden they've just rotated around, and now all of a sudden, oh, I'm supposed to be marking him, but now he's on the left and I'm a right-sided centre back. Who am I supposed to be picking up now? You're going to have a couple of seconds where you're trying to think, and that couple of seconds will kill you if you're a defensive player, and someone will just get straight in behind you. So I think those three could really work well. And then I think if we then have to try and shift into more of an attacking formation where we then try and play 4 at a back, you can then play more wingers. You then got Dennis, you can lob on a wing. You've Johnson, you can lob on a wing. Morgan Gibbs White can play as a cam. And then you've got Lingard, who can play as a cam or a winger. You've got Awani, you can play as a striker. You've got Surridge, you can play as a striker. We've got so many attacking options, and we can then make that change of formation. I know we trialed it a little bit in the last season, and when it didn't work, we then went back to our standard. But I think it's something that we can start to trial, and especially in some of these games, if we go like 2-3-0 down, God forbid, I don't want to see it happen, obviously, but if that is the case in the next couple of games that we've got against Spurs and Man City, where we can start to throw stuff against the wall, right, we're going to go a bit more of an attacking formation, give it a trial, I think that could then start to open a couple of doors, and there's no reason why those three work as a triangle, but then we've got so many attacking options now. I can't wait to see what Steve Cooper comes up with, and then how we can start to play on the actual pitch.
And obviously it's good to have the rotation, but also the versatility, not just within the midfield or the attack, but also the defence. You know, there's players like Kouyaté who can step in if absolutely necessary in the defence.
He was excellent at Grimsby. Jamie, he was excellent at Grimsby. Yeah. He took me by surprise. I mean, Czech's a big lad.
He could challenge for centre-back.
Exactly, Liam.
That was awesome.
That was the point I was going to make. Liam was at Grimsby with me, and he will have seen like the amount of quick covering that Czech Kouyaté did. In fact, it was a bit like when Oral Mangala went off at Everton, we held our breath because you don't want him to be injured. At Grimsby, it was the same when Czech came off to allow young Zach Abbott to come off. And I thought Czech Kouyaté, I'd worried about Moussa Niakhate being, out for a while, which obviously he is, thinking about would they go and buy another centre half, a central defender. But the way Czech Kouyaté played the other night, I thought, no, he's a really good guy. I mean, for a free transfer, he could be a belting signing. Him, he was better than I'd imagined he would be. And do you agree with me, Liam?
Oh, he's gone. Liam's gone now. He's been caught picking his nose as well.
I tell you what, though, Jamie, all the stuff that Joe said about Brennan and Morgan and Jesse. If I'm Eric Dyer and I'm Ben Davies and probably Davinson Sanchez, I would like Taiwo up there, so I've got a focal point for defending. If it's Brennan and it's Morgan and it's Jesse, these guys are going to go where they want to go. And Eric Dyer's probably going to play in the centre of the back for Tottenham with Ben Davies one side and I think Davinson Sanchez the other. And Steve might go, tell you what, let's play these smaller, nippier guys. A bit like I always kind of think of, and I'm going to be really silly now, but the Spanish Armada had these huge ships. The English guys, their fleet was small and nippy, and the lads were able to get in amongst them and sink the Spanish ships. And, if you're Dyer and Ben Davies and Davinson Sanchez, you don't want Brennan nipping around you or Morgan or Jesse, Although I'd take Joe's point that Jesse just seems to be just through no fault of his own. So there's no need to kind of get on his case. These short-term hysteria merchants who are judging people on like 5 minutes of action where they should be judging them on a 4 or 5 months. Jesse's just needing to kind of go there. I think of the Valencia friendly where he was excellent for 65, 70. And then he just sort of ran out of juice as he was entitled to, So I think it'd be interesting. But the bottom line, as Joe said, is we've got these options now, and we may have even more options by 11 o'clock on Wednesday night. So, for a Forest fan, I mean, Sunday, I believe, is the 1 year anniversary of when we went to Derby last year, and we were ecstatic over a draw there, So we've got these options now, and it's up to Steve and Tatey and the lads to use them. So it's exciting.
Well, let me just ask this, and before I do, I just want to say thank you to Iron Wolf, who's very kindly donated £20. So, wow, amazing, absolutely incredible. Thank you for your very, very kind donation means a hell of a lot to us. And don't forget also, half of your donations will be going to Mind Charity as well. And I'll be doing all of the collection kind of thing in around a week or so. And I'll reveal to you the final number. And I might even double it up if I can. So we'll do that. It should be around £40 or £50 per month as we're going at the moment. So really good work, everybody. Thank you all very much for helping with that. Now, very good points raised. But of course, you mentioned we've got a lot of options. Now, it must be an absolute headache to have to choose. And considering how well Freuler did in the game against Grimsby, with his 90% pass accuracy, and obviously you mentioned Kouyaté, and one name that hasn't been yet mentioned, Ryan Yates as well. Let me just ask this, Liam. I mean, Ryan Yates has hit the ground running, especially after the injury he had, which was quite a shock. Now, Liam, let me just ask you this. Who is your 3 midfielders that you are starting against Tottenham on Sunday? I'm going to put you on the spot, Mr. Cooper and Mr. Tate. What do you think about it, Liam?
So we go Cam first. I'll go Gibbs White.
Okay.
Centre mid, I would try that Freuler at.
Yeah.
Because he was quality against Grimsby and ran the show. And then I'd go O'Brien because you can't leave him out because he's put in 3 man of the match performances, in my opinion, in 3 Premier League games for a player that's never played in the Premier League.
So I'm going to be horrible. I'm going to be absolutely horrible and be one of those that goes, what about Mangala? He's been really, really good. And also, what about Ryan Yates? Because I thought he provided a good physical presence. He made a lot of good passes, and he's got the left foot of Lionel Messi. So, what about those guys, Liam? What about them?
It was a good finish, but
are they not good enough, Liam?
No, they are good enough. Yeah.
Come on, Liam.
I nearly tripped up on my own words there. I just think that experience in the centre mid role, he brings that. He's played in the Champions League. He'll be a big occasion player, in my opinion. Mangala, obviously, what people have said how he trains is quality, but we do need to try things different as well. We can't go into every game the same because every game, every team is going to have done their research on us.
And there's 5 subs as well, don't forget. So you've got to remember that even if we, let's say we do start in the way that you said, which was Freuler, O'Brien and Gibbs White, you could still go Lingard and then Yates and Mangala if you really wanted to. And you've still got 2 subs left to use, But I want to ask a question, and this is the crazy part about it. It's not easy. And I'm sorry because I do. And Ez is right here. I've just completely entrapped you and I've done it on purpose. It's like when you say it on Twitter, isn't it? Because you say on Twitter, this is my starting 11, and someone goes, well, what about them? Do you not think they're a good player? And it's like, oh, don't start this.
But what a great problem to have, Jamie. I mean, the 4 of us, we're loving. I mean, my 3. I was watching Liam's face then, and he's such a brilliant lad, and I could see he was thinking,
I hate Jamie. I hate him.
See me, Jamie. I'm going Lewis O'Brien, Oral Mangala, probably Morgan over Jesse.
I would have said that.
But then, by the same token, I mean, Lewis O'Brien was man of the match against West Ham, and he did really well again against Everton. He's in possession of the shirt, although they're obviously breathing down his neck. Oral Mangala was my man of the match at Everton. I thought after that first 15, 20 minutes, he took possession of the ball and he kind of took the impetus away from Everton. And he did it in a really subtle way. He didn't, not a showy player, but I just thought he kept the ball and gave us some tempo, and we had possession. So I don't think you can drop him. I mean, obviously he came off against Everton, so we'll have to see what his state of health is. And then I do think that maybe Morgan. I mean, Morgan. There were 2 brilliant cameos at Everton. One of them was Morgan, and the other was Yatesy. And then, you go to Grimsby, Yatesy's captain, and he captained beautifully. He was talking to everybody all night. He was really, keeping the lads together. Yatesy being Yatesy, and ex-Chelsea's, we were all in the Humber or nearby when he scored that goal. So, it's like, all I'm saying is much as I admire him, I'm glad I'm not Steve Cooper tonight or tomorrow.
Well, I mean, Dave, you've got the tactical genius of Steve Cooper, I'd suggest. Now, Liam, did you want to add something on that?
Yeah, looking at that Grimsby game, you'd call it a reserve team fixture, but you've probably got 7 or 8 players in that fixture that could easily slot into the first team and do a service for us.
Freuler, Liam.
He was unreal. He was
Emmanuel
my man
Dennis.
of the match
I thought Cafu played all right.
Well, Dennis got his first
Dennis
assist in his debut as well.
He was turning their right back inside out.
Well, let me ask you this then. I do want to ask about Taiwo Awoniyi in particular, because there's a part of me, and Dave, I want to ask you this question. Taiwo Awoniyi, I think he's capable. I think he just needs to release a little bit quicker, but I think he's capable, and I think he's going to do good things for Forest in particular. Now, I want to know how you feel about maybe starting him against Tottenham. Now, I think Tottenham have got a very good defence, but I think they've actually faced a bit stronger defences in terms of physicality, before this. Very good defence, though, at Tottenham, of course. But for me, I think maybe if you did start someone like Taiwo Awoniyi to kind of bully the Tottenham defence a little bit, and then, as you say, bring on the younger, the smaller, nippier lads towards maybe 50 or 60 minutes in, wouldn't be necessarily a bad idea. How are you feeling about that?
Well, in the 3 games that Tottenham have played in the league so far, they played Southampton, they beat 4-1, they played Chelsea, and they played Wolves. Not one of them has got a guy as big and as physical as Taiwo is.
Absolutely.
So it's a new challenge for them. I guess Southampton, it'd be either Adam Armstrong or Che Adams. Then Wolves was Raul Jimenez, I guess. Chelsea, I can't remember. Kai Havertz, I think. Now Taiwo is bigger than all of them. I just think with Taiwo, it's just taking him a bit longer to settle in. Although again, at Grimsby, he played the ball into Cafu to set Sam up for the 3rd goal. So, I think I definitely see a progression in Taiwo from the pre-season games.
I think he's nervous, and them nerves are causing him to be clumsy.
Yeah.
Because that's all I would say about his first 3 games that I've seen him playing. Personally, like in person, he's just a bit clumsy, and I think that'll come with his match fitness and
he needs the right kind of service. It was noticeable to me against West Ham, which was probably his best game for the club, that when they got the ball out wide, Nico and Harry, Nico in particular, was looking to kind of swing balls in behind fullbacks. If you watch his highlight reel from the Bundesliga for Union, so many of his goals have come. I think the vast majority, very few of them, where he's got his back to goal and he's turning. So he's not like Keenan, where Keenan would stick his bum into a defender's body to hold him off. I think Taiwo likes to get a head of steam up. So it was Nico in particular. It was really noticeable against West Ham. He wanted to get the ball in behind him. The ideal ball for Taiwo Awoniyi every time, if you could take it and Xerox it, would be the ball that Ivan Toney played to Brian Mbeumo against Manchester United. That ball, go on, old lad, run onto it. And I tell you what, if you're a defender and Taiwo Awoniyi's coming at you at pace, you've got some thinking to do. I don't think he's the most fluent mover. I don't think he's kind of like, he's not. People say he's a bit like Collymore. Stan was a beautiful, elegant mover. I don't think Taiwo's quite as, I don't know, just not as flexible somehow.
It's not as fluid, I don't think.
No, but he's got a lot that you can work with. I mean, obviously, people have written him off because they're like, these are sort of people who just want a 4-0 win every week, whether, whatever is going on. But I think they're working with him. I think he needs some rough edges knocked off him, and it may take a bit of time with Taiwo.
I honestly believe that's nerves, though.
Yeah.
I think it's nerves.
Yeah. He's always wanted to play in the Premier League, hasn't he?
It's like playing at Newcastle last week, where it was not last week, 2 weeks ago, where it's deafening when they scored. They're big occasions now.
But this is it. I mean, the atmosphere in Germany, having experienced it myself, them singing his name, is immense. It's immense. And although that wasn't the best game in pre-season or whatever, there's a reason that that people were singing his name. And as I've said, there's a reason that people like him in Germany. In German, the Bundesliga is a top league. So, he can do it in the Premier League, but we've got to get behind him, and if he's getting assists and making key passes, it's a very, very good start,
Just look at the midfield behind him. The midfield are going to create for him. And Nico Williams is taken a bit of a back burner because of how good the centre mids have been. But him against West Ham and Everton, he was quality.
Excellent.
But because everyone else has shone.
I think Nico Williams
he's going to be our main assistant this season.
He doesn't get enough talk, I don't think, at times, Nico Williams. He's a very good player. And I remember seeing him walking out of the press bit with my two big boxes like that, thinking, bloody hell, I'm tired. And I look and I see Nico Williams coming out. He looked absolutely battered, gave his all that game. And do you know what? He still had the decency to say hello and, whatever. And that, for me, because he could have just ignored. Do you know what I mean? And I just think, very good player.
In as well, lads.
Harry Toffolo,
Harry Toffolo created the goal against West Ham. Harry's another one, learning as he's going along. I mean, if you're talking about nerves, I saw Harry Toffolo play for Lincoln City at Port Vale about 4 years ago. And I thought, he's not a bad lad, him. I never imagined he'd be in the Premier League. I couldn't see that happening. And I like to think that Harry Toffolo himself at the time, he must be thinking, wow, I've made the Premier League. A bit like Lewis O'Brien, a bit like Taiwo Awoniyi. What people have to remember, and Steve Cooper knows this better than any of us, these are human beings you're dealing with. They're not machines. They're not perfect. They all have their own quirks and idiosyncrasies. And Steve Cooper's brilliance is that he understands that what suits Nico might be different for Harry Toffolo from, there are some people, I guess, you just let them get on with it. Scott McKenna's probably one of those. But there are others that need an arm round them. There's others that need to kick up the jacksie. So it's not an exact science. Hindsight is, but it's very, very difficult. They're a lot of them new together. I mean, I actually think they're hanging together quite well in terms of cohesive structure at the moment for a gang of strangers. I mean, we've got 4 points on the board out 3 games. We're unbeaten in. Well, if you're chucking Grimsby, we're unbeaten in 3 games. It depends how you interpret it and how you look at it. I want to see the good in stuff. If something happens that's like a guy gets sent off for doing something silly, then I'll be the first on his case. But I just think you have to. I know probably people say, silly old sentimental day, but I believe in giving people the benefit of the doubt until you have a body of work upon which you can say, right, that doubt has actually now gone. A case in point, I guess, and I think he's a tremendous personality, but he's been a big disappointment to me. He's Lyle Taylor. We now know Lyle Taylor isn't good enough. And he's likely to probably go out the door this week. So, you can come to the point where Lyle Taylor's doubt has gone. But with
not just that as well, but I remember seeing, and sorry to cut, I remember seeing when we were going into the West Ham game, all the players stopped to say hello to the fans except for Lyle Taylor. And I think Lyle Taylor, having spoke to him, is actually a really nice guy. He's not a bad guy by any means. Yeah. He's come up to me, shook my hand, and he's been dead kind to all the journalists and everybody that were around, and he's given time for the fans before. But that day just didn't seem interested. And I thought, it's time that you go, based off that, because as a player, having respect for the fans that make your living possible is important for me. But I do want to ask you, Joe, now, I'm bringing back onto Harry Toffolo's point. Now, Omar Richards, we don't know how long he's really going to be out for. They've said a month, but it could be, who knows, it could be back in the next 10 minutes, as far as I'm aware. You just don't know, do you? You just don't know. But Joe, let me ask you, do you actually think that Omar Richards goes into the Forest team, as quickly as some people think he will? Because I don't think it will be that quick. I think that Harry Toffolo's made a statement and shown that regardless of how much you paid for a player, it's about form. And at the moment, Harry Toffolo's been absolutely solid. So some people going, Omar Richards, can't wait to see him in the team. He's going to get in that quick. I actually don't think that'll be the case. What do you think?
I think you've just given me the question, but you've answered it perfectly yourself. So I'll try and extrapolate on that point a little bit more. There's no way that you could look at Harry Toffolo's performance and say he doesn't deserve to keep on playing in the squad. And it doesn't matter if someone's all of a sudden become match fit, they're going to be able to get their first chance in the Premier League as soon as they're fit and ready to start playing again in the team. The way that Toffolo has integrated his way into the team, he looked a bit off the pace in Newcastle, he looked a bit lost.
Yeah.
But West Ham, the way that he controlled that ball, and even if it is just a couple of singular moments of brilliance when he's attacking, the way that he created that goal got us 3 points. You can't look at that dribble that he did in any other objective way. It is pretty much a statement of fact with him controlling that ball and having the composure to get past a couple of players and play the pass into Lingard. We wouldn't have scored a goal. So I think, and then you go back into some other games. I think there's just the way that we keep on talking about, we've brought in all these players and we need them to gel. There's no point in playing someone for a good month or a month and a half to try and gel them into a team to then replace them straight away when we've got someone else who's brand new and fit and just throw them straight into the squad and say, have at it. I think that'd be setting pretty much the wrong precedent to anybody in the team, where we are pretty much building a brand new squad. And if you just go back to the midfield, if you say we're building a midfield where it's tough to pick players who's going to start in your starting 11, you're going to build a lot of competition in that training pitch, which is just going to make everyone better by default. Everyone's going to be stepping up their game to try and become the best player in their position. So if you just throw Toffolo away and say, oh, Omar Richards is fit now, so I'm going to go back in the reserves and the bench, you're just setting completely the wrong precedent. So yes, Richards might become fit and then he can quite happily come on from the bench in the first couple of games or so. But if we just throw him straight in, I think we're almost setting a wrong message to the rest of the team and to the fans, who are then just going to bite on that immediately.
Well, I know what Steve Cooper would do, and there was evidence of it. And I'm just, as you were talking, everything you said, Joe, spot on. And I reckon if Steve Cooper was listening to you, Joe, he would endorse every word. Now, go back to last season. Reece Samba was left out. Well, he had 3 games suspension after having a swipe at Phil Jagielka. And I think maybe Brees thought, and certainly a lot of other people thought, that he'd serve his 3-match suspension and he'd be straight back in and Ethan would have been out. No, Ethan stayed in. And it's like, in a way, Ethan was really unlucky to lose that shirt because of his World Cup and then jet lag and all that. So Steve, whoever's got the shirt, and that's why I think Sunday it will be Lewis O'Brien and Oral Mangala. Whoever's got the shirt, it's up to these other guys, Yatesy, Remo, whoever, to come and take that shirt off them. And I think if you're in possession is 10/10 of the law with the shirt in the Nottingham Forest first 11. So, Steve won't think, well, Omar played for Bayern and Harry was at Lincoln 4 years ago where Dave Raspberry was watching him at Port Vale. Steve were going, and again, the great point, and a point that you say there, Joe, is Harry did have a tough test at Newcastle, and he didn't have a great game. And I know some people sort of picked him out as a possible weak link, but West Ham and then Everton, you wouldn't have known he'd had that bad game. I mean, which is testament to him. I think testament to the coaching staff.
Oh no! Well, you've made really good points there, and Joe, I want to touch on it and say the quote. If it's not broken, don't fix it.
Exactly.
And I think that's the point that we've got to make here. And Wolverine, I know that you're saying Richards goes straight back in, which I don't think. I think you're playing on the controversy there, Mr. Chris Sutton. But on a serious one though,
maybe Toffolo isn't sexy enough for some people.
Well,
maybe, or somebody was at Bayern Munich, sexy. Somebody was at Lincoln City and Huddersfield, not sexy. But Steve isn't bothered whether somebody's sexy or not.
But let me just say this as well. There's a reason that Toffolo is the choice for. I know the analogy there that you're more Alan Partridge than I am. You're more Alan Partridge than me. But yeah, I'm going to read your next 2 points. Don't worry. Think about it. Why have we been linked with Moreno and now Lodi? Doesn't matter what you or I think. It's clear Cooper wants. I mean, I'm going to ask you this, Liam. It's clear that Cooper wants someone in that position, in that area. But do you really think it's just because they don't think that Toffolo's this, or they think Richards is this? Why do you think that he's looking at other options? Is there going to be a formation change, or do you think he's
because he
concerned about
wants
other
strength
players?
and depth?
Or do you think that people are reading into it a bit too much?
I think he just wants strength and depth. It's a long Premier League season. Yeah. He's probably fancying a cup run as well. You need that strength and depth. And the ability to have choice over 3 or 4 players. which something we haven't had in left back or right back for a long time. It's building something for next season, the season after, and it's making the competition for players to be like, I need to play it out my skin every single game, or we've got 2 players behind me that are just as good as me.
Yeah.
Well, also, we've got to realise how lucky we are to have the players that we do have. You know, the good recruitment drive that we've done, pretty important. As Nick says, actually, Atalanta are already missing Freuler. Looks like they're going to lose Malinovsky and also Hateboer as well at the defence. So, you know, it's a you've got to give credit to the people that have done the recruitment. They've done great, and obviously the teams that have lost these players, Forest have put in a bid they can't, you know, not say yes to, and the players wanted to come to Forest, so they believe in the project and they believe in Steve Cooper as well as Morgan Gibbs-White. You know, turned down Everton as well. So, and Goodison, a very good atmosphere equally as well. But I do want to talk about Wolverine's point here, and I wouldn't say actually that your point you're making is actually. I don't think you're quite making. I don't know how to say this, but
it's not a wrong point that he's making.
It's not a wrong point.
Moreno and Lodi on the point that we're trying to make.
But they've not played in a Forest team. So how on earth could you compare?
They're not in the building. They're not here.
They've not played in English football.
They're not here. If Aurier comes in and Tanganga comes in and Lodi comes in and they're actually by 11 o'clock on Wednesday night, they're Nottingham Forest players, then fair enough. Those names enter the discussion, enter the debate. But as of now, we're 2 days away from Tottenham. Steve Cooper's thinking about Harry Toffolo and, you know, maybe Aaron Donnelly. I don't know, because you can't think about Omar because Omar's injured, right? And in terms of the signings, Liam's point about strength in depth and organic competition, that's what he's after. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, these guys might come in. I mean, Reguilon even, I don't know. They're all names that have been bandied about. We've had, throughout this transfer window, we've had Awar bandied about. We've had this other guy bandied about. They're not in the building, so they're irrelevant. Steve was asked today about new signings, and he was like, all I'm concentrating on is what I've got inside my dressing room ahead of Tottenham Hotspur at 4:30 on Sunday.
So, and do you know what? I think you create almost a toxic atmosphere almost if you were to go and sort of go, oh yeah, well, if Steve Cooper came out next week and did a press conference and went, oh well, yeah, we're signing Lodi and the left position is gonna be so good. It's like, well, you're creating a negative atmosphere there, and also they're not Forest players. They've not played English football. Moreno's not interested in joining. We're not 100% if Lodi, sure if Lodi wants to join. I just want to say there's nothing solid in that. Atletico want to let him go out on loan. There's a £4 million loan fee being thrown around, but there's nothing solid there. So we can't even really talk about that just yet. The Moreno thing ended weeks ago. At the end of the day, we've got to talk about the players that we do have. We've got to talk about the players that we're going to use against Spurs. It's no good talking about Lodi or Moreno, especially considering they're not even in this team, and they're not even within or affiliated with the club. And when it also comes to Gakpo as well, it's another player that he wants Manchester United. The likelihood of him coming to Forest is very, very low. A good player, but even PSV don't want to let him go. So we shouldn't get our hopes up about players like that. Now, we're approaching the last 10 minutes, so I do want to do a bit of a Q&A. We're going to do some quick fire questions with everybody. So any questions you do have, chuck them in the comments, and we will be answering all of those. Now, good squad depth.
A little side note, just quick. What I'm looking at is looking forwards. Everton not got strength in depth. Man United haven't got strength in depth right now. You got Leeds, Leicester, all struggling for players through the door that can play football. And I still think Maddison's going to go. He'll be off. And Forest haven't got that problem right now. We've got strength in depth in pretty much every position. Nawoni gets injured, Sam Sturridge comes in. What the teams that we're competing with in our little league haven't got that strength in depth. And for Forest to keep thinking to building, it's just looking forwards to the future for me.
Yeah.
I think when it comes to Leeds,
strategy. Liam, you're right. It's long-term strategy. I mean, he made a point in the presser today where he talked about, he was alluding to Fulham and Bournemouth, did all their business in the last two windows. So, when we went to like Bournemouth at the end of last season and we lost, it struck me. I looked around the team that night that played Bournemouth, and our team, I think the only people we paid money for were Breeze Samba, Scott McKenna, and Sam Surridge that night. And I think the total value of our team was 6 million. So they're like homegrowns and loans and all this kind of stuff. Dominic Solanke on his own that night was 25 million. So he's Cooper's brilliant point today is that we're playing catch up. We're playing catch up with those teams that spent money. We're playing catch up with, hey, we're a Premier League side. And we're playing catch up with what's going on inside our own club, because what we had at the end of last season, it did a wonderful job to get us up, but it wasn't going to be good enough to keep us up. 5 loans, ends of contract, and some who aren't good enough, sadly.
Well, against Newcastle, would you have said we had strength in depth on the bench? I wouldn't. I was looking at that bench that day thinking,
not until
it goes wrong today, we've got nothing on the bench.
No.
Fast forward 2 weeks.
Yeah,
we've got 3 midfielders on the bench that can easily come in and play football.
Yeah,
Colback's
and the 5
completely
is a
out
game
of question
changer.
now. No one's talking about Colback at all.
No.
That's
Well,
2 weeks on from Newcastle.
Well, I
and
do
then
want
you've
to
got
ask you.
strikers on the bench that can easily come on. You've got Dennis, who's quick. He can turn a player inside out if he wants to.
Well, let me ask
from
you this
Newcastle
question
to
then.
now, it feels like we're 2 miles away from what we was.
Well, let me ask you the question about Colback then in specific. And Joe, I want to ask you this question. Well, Colback and Cafu, the 2 players that, I'd say Colback more so, but instrumental last season, very important players. And even though people had just chucked Colback out as just another player that Forest didn't need, under Cooper, he thrived. And I think Cafu as well, I think he was an underrated substitute when he came on, always gave his all and very, very passionate and a nice gentleman overall. Now, where do you see them going? Because do you think that potentially we could lose them permanently? I mean, I think that it's more likely we would lose Cafu. I know that there's a lot of things going around about Cafu potentially leaving permanently. What are your thoughts on that? Because obviously you can't have sentiment in the Premier League, but do you think that their departure is necessary? How would you approach that?
I wouldn't say their departure is completely necessary, but if you completely take any kind of sentimentality and how we feel about them as players aside, if you look at them purely objectively, you would say that they might be at this point surplus to requirement. I think if you're completely looking at it, if you've got a starting 11 and then 5 subs that you're going to be bringing on, I think you'd be struggling, or you'd be in a very difficult situation where you'd be saying, we need to bring Cole back on. And it hurts to say that because I absolutely love him. And everything that he did for us last year, playing out of position to really dig us out of a hole, going back to Liam's point where we had no depth at all. We lost our left back and that was it. We had no left back for the rest of the season. The job that he did, he's a club hero for doing that. And he completely bailed us out of a real dodgy situation. But if you look at it now, I'm struggling to see a situation where we are in. We'd have to have a lot of midfielders who are out of it to be able to almost justify bringing them into a Premier League game, I think. And it's just difficult at that point. I think Cafu, he might have a bit more of a say in it purely because he can play that attacking midfield role, and we only really have Morgan Gibbs-White and Jesse Lingard that can go in that slot. So he might have a bit more something to say where, no, I do have a role that I can fill here, but I just think Colback might be a bit lost.
I agree. And then, Dave, the last question I'm going to ask of the stream just before we leave, because I think I might need some sleep. I think I might. It was a bit of a late one last night. I woke up and I had a McDonald's. I had chips all over the floor, and I had a McDonald's milkshake, at the side of my bed. So I was thinking, oh crap, it wasn't fun to clean up right. And Breaking Bad, I'd missed out on 3 episodes. I've had to go back and watch them all. So don't fall asleep with them.
And you've got Better Call Saul to do, Jamie, as well.
And I've got Better Call Saul and El Camino as well, by the way. I've got lots to do.
You have, mate, yeah.
Before we go on to a review show of Breaking Bad and all this stuff, Dave, last question. I do want to ask Alex Mighton, a player that has been mentioned a couple of times across Twitter, but I think a player that, well, I mean, this is just my opinion, but I think he needs a Brennan Johnson kind of loan. I think he needs perhaps not a really easy kind of league where he's just like a League Two or something. I think he needs something a little bit more than that, but he needs to go somewhere where he's going to get first team game time. He's going to go and score some goals, build up some confidence, face a little bit of challenge along the way, but more so just be a motivation for the season coming after that, whether he manages to try and jump in the first team, because it's not impossible. But I just think, as much as, he could do the odd bit here and there, I don't see him coming in on the sub, really. I think maybe giving him a loan, but what do you think about that? And if so, where would you say he would be best going out on loan to?
It's a tricky one, Jamie, because, I mean, if you take Alex and what he did at Grimsby the other night, I saw some people who thought he played really, really well and he was busy and whatever. Yeah. Whereas I kind of felt that his end product wasn't really that great. I think there's a really good lad and a really good player trying to get out of there. I think there's a lot of potential. Steve's kept him about the place, so he must think a lot of him. But I just think with Alex, it's a little bit of flattering to deceive a lot of the time. And he hasn't really. I thought he would kick on far more than he has done. So and all those people who thought he played all right at Grimsby, I mean, again, we're open to interpretations. I kind of felt like I wanted a little bit more from him. And I think that, I don't think a League One loan or anything like that, maybe a Championship loan. I mean, there was talk of him going to Standard Liège, which, these European loans have become a bit of a thing recently. We've had lads going to the Bundesliga, and we've had lads going to the Eredivisie, and all these kind of things. So something like that would do Alex good, but I just kind of think to myself, when is this butterfly going to emerge from the chrysalis? I just kind of, every time he gets the ball, like somebody the same age as me niece, who's 11 and I'm 58, I'm like a little lad jumping up and down, go on, Alex. And then you find out he gets knocked off the ball or it just doesn't happen. And I kind of found myself, I so want him to do well. I'm so for him. I mean, it's support. And yeah, there is room in football for sentiment. I've got the sentiment. My sentiment is I want Alex Mighten to do really, really well. But because the sentiment is an idea, not just nostalgia, right? Maybe just send him somewhere and let him get him out of the environment for a bit. Send him somewhere and let him relax and let him play some football. He needs to play every week. At the moment, when we look at our bench now, Alex is going to struggle to get game time, as Jack Colback's going to struggle to get game time. But I think he'll keep Jack Colback. On the subject of Jack Colback and Cafu, I think it depends on what those two want to do. Jack Colback might think, well, okay, I might not get game time, but I can help around the club being a senior professional. A bit like Gaetan Bong apparently did last year. Now, he was never going to get a game, but apparently around the dressing room, he was brilliant. Same with Cafu. It depends. If they go to Steve and say, I'm not going to get any game time, can I leave? Then that's a different thing. But I just think Alex Mighten, and unless he's to become a might have been Mighten, then I do think he needs to go and find a loan somewhere, But I'd like, if he goes on loan somewhere, for Forest to keep close tabs on him and to kind of, look after him in that way in order to try and get him to be better. But the other night at Grimsby, you kind of thought, this is a real opportunity for him against a League Two side. And I don't think he stood out that much. I don't think he stood out enough. So I'm sending him on loan, really.
I think he's just so negative. He either runs and gets pushed over, or he'll pass back when he could have ran and tested the left back against Grimsby. He needs to go to a league where he's going to get kicked the crap out of every week and get stronger. Maybe.
Send him to St Mirren or Livingston or
he might be going to Hearts. He needs to be in a league where he's going to get stronger. Because his main thing, he's quick, but he's like Bambi.
Yeah, he reminds me of Franz Carr. I used to love Franz Carr right back in the day. And Franz would get the ball and he'd run at people and you think he's going to go past him. And then by and large, his end product was kind of not up to what had gone before. And I think Alex is slightly in danger of falling into the same category.
I do see potential in him, but
but it needs to start being realised, Liam. I think
He just plays negative to me. It went every pass that he pulled off last week against Grimsby was backwards, and for a winger that's got that much pace to not beat his first man, constantly his crosses hit the defender he's trying to beat. For a winger that quick, he should be having no problems against a League Two Grimsby.
Yeah. Why can't he look at Brennan? Why can't he look at Brennan? He's in training with Brennan every day. You know, why can he not ape Brennan and say, well, that guy's doing it? You know, he's probably as quick as Brennan, but Brennan has kind of gone to that next level. Brennan's learned, bringing out his potential and creating it and turning it into reality. I just think with Alex, it's like, I mean, the one time he got around the back of the defender the other night, he put a ball across and there was nobody in the box. And I just think it's, I don't know. I've just never been totally convinced, if I'm honest. And I don't like saying that about any player, but that's the way I feel.
I feel like he's Forest poster boy. He's been there for the pictures and for the kit reveals. And really, now we just want him to do the business on the pitch.
Yeah. I think he needs to go somewhere else to do that, though, because as much as we like to just say, Steve Cooper, get him over, get him on the pitch in the 80th minute, or it's like, well, 10 minutes in the Premier League is, as we saw against Everton, a lot can change. A couple of goals can get scored. And I don't want to be negative, as I never will, but I said to the co-commentator next to me, I said, Everton, they're going to come out and score soon. It's going to be like Hull. I thought when I saw Brennan Johnson do the celebration, I thought, don't do it, because it's going to be like Hull again, isn't it? And, that one mistake. And it's horrible to think that way, but, kind of sometimes you do. But it's you can't really see Martin really getting game time at Forest. So alone is definitely what he needs. But the last point I do want to make, and Dave, I'm going to make a proposition to you very soon, because I know people...
Jamie.
He has a proposition as well. He does. Wow. Because people are enjoying the chat, and I'm proposing a Dave and Jay show. I'm proposing a Dave and Jay show. You know what I mean? I'm talking, this is better than White and Jordan. This is Dave and Jay. I'm telling you, it's a bit less controversial though. But we've hit the 12 o'clock mark, and we're still a bit tired, but we've still got something to talk about. Come on, it's officially tomorrow. So hi tomorrow, bye yesterday. I do want to ask you all. No, but we like that. But people love it, and people are enjoying it. And by the way, guys, if you have enjoyed this episode, please click the like button and drop a subscribe. There's 123 of you in. If you drop a subscribe, that means that there'll be a lot more likes. And yeah, it would help a little bit if you could. But starting with Joe, I want to know your score predictions for Sunday. And please don't go Chris Sutton on us, Joe, because you will be banned. I've got the ban button ready. I can click it now if you want. Score predictions, quick fire. Joe, what's your score prediction?
You ruined it by saying quick fire, because I was going to do a full Chris Sutton there by saying it's going to be a really close game. I think we're going to give him a really good go. The crowd's going to really be the 12th and 13th man. 5-0.
Oh, I thought you were going to start saying, Forest are a great team. I love Forest. Nottingham lad. But I think they're crap. I think they're going to beat 5-0. That's what he does. What
but I'll with my if we're talking in my head, I'll go with a 1-1. I'll be happy with a 1-1. I think that will show real precedent that we're well and truly able to play with any team in the Premier League, especially at home. A 1-1, I'll be more than happy with. If we get a win, I will be absolutely elated. If we lose by 1 goal, I'll still take it as a massive learning curve, and that'll be a great experience for the lads. So I think 1-1, pitch it in the middle. I'll be really happy with that.
Liam, score predictions for Sunday.
So I've got 2. If we respect Tottenham, we will get hammered. I'd say 3-0 if we give them respect. If we stand off Son and Kane, they'll run riot with us. If we do what Niakhate did to Antonio and bully them and let them know you're there all game, like make a hard challenge on Son straight away, because he's their danger man in my eyes.
Yeah,
Kane's the one that's just going to finish it for you, but Son can run on the ball. And if we do that, I think we could maybe draw 1-1. I'd take a 1-1 all day long. If we won 1-0, amazing. But all the top clubs have dropped points. Except for
Arsenal.
I can't remember now. My mind's gone blank.
Yeah, Arsenal, very, very, very good team. In form. Look, I'm glad that we didn't get them in the cup this time, to be honest with you.
Every other top team has dropped points on games they should have won.
Yeah, and Dave, I do want to know, what's your score prediction for Sunday then? I've said 2-2, personally. I've said 2-2.
I mean...
He gets it right every time, Dave does.
If we're not being sentimental,
yeah,
Tottenham win, I'm afraid. It'd be 2-1 to Tottenham. It's not going to be this bizarre, outlandish, hallucinatory view that Chris Sutton has got, or, you know, these other people who seem to have a lazy view of Nottingham Forest. I think Tottenham are going to be pushed, but my head says that Tottenham will... They've just got that extra quality that we are building towards. We're a work in progress. I look at us, we're a work in progress, a smashing work in progress with so much to like about us. But Tottenham is another step. So head says Tottenham. Anything, a point, I'd be chuffed to bits with. A win, well, I'd be like that scene in Trainspotting where they say take the finest orgasm and multiply it by 1,000,000. You know, any win against Tottenham Hotspur on Sunday is going to be something really to celebrate.
Yeah,
but I'll take it.
I'm getting demonetized. Here we go. That's it. YouTube, I'm sorry.
Shed, aren't we? at 12 o'clock. But honestly, Jamie, I think head says Tottenham win. And you know, Nottingham Forest are not going to win a match just because we love them. They're going to win it by being good enough. And they're going to have to play better than they've played probably for the last 23, 24 years to win on Sunday. But it can be done. Actually, it's probably better to be playing Tottenham in August than it would be when they've got a head of steam up later on down the line. But I think it's going to be incredibly difficult. A point, I'd be absolutely... I think if we get a point, everybody will be walking out the City Ground with a massive grin on their face. So I fancy... My head says Tottenham, but my heart will always say Forest because I'm in love.
Dave. Dave.
There's room everywhere for sentiment.
Oh, Dave, don't do this. You're going to make me cry now.
There's no room in football for sentiment. They're like these people who believe like cynicism is better than idealism. I won't have it. And I'm
But on that point,
Dave.
What's that, Liam?
Are you going to City next week?
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
Are we all having a booze up at City, are we now? Is that what's going on?
Well, I'm looking for a nice cup of tea when I go to City because I'm teetotal, lads. I'm really
Dave,
boring.
I'll get you that cup of tea. That's what we'll do. I'll be at the ground very, very, very early. If my plan goes to, well, I mean, hopefully I'm not getting there by train. Let's just hope. So unless the motorway's on strike, I should be okay.
I want one of your analogies for my video, to be honest.
I definitely want one of the analogies that's more appropriate. More appropriate.
You can be as dirty as you want on my one.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, do what you want on Liam's one, but for my one, try not to get us demonetized, Dave, because I have a feeling I'm going to get a nice little email from YouTube going, you know that Dave Astbury, you need to stop him saying these things, otherwise he's going to get a clip round the ear. Not good. No. I'm joking, Dave. I love you, mate. Then the analogy is.
If I've caused you any problem, mate, I can only heartily apologise. I do apologise, mate.
You sound like Conor McGregor in that post fight one. To absolutely nobody. I apologise to no one. The champ does what he wants. Dave, you do what you want, my friend. You're a legend. Good to have. But no, hey, well, you know, I mean, I can't imagine seeing you in the MMA ring. I must admit, but Dave, that's a story for another day. Dave's making his career in MMA. I'll be pleased to see, you know, to tell you all. But listen, it's been brilliant talking to you, gents. It's a little bit late. I've still got to go and cook my food, and I'm having chicken and chips tonight. So chicken and chips for me. Very, very excited for that, and also a bit excited for this game on Sunday against some Tottenham team. So whoever they are, looking forward to playing them. Got a nice manager as well.
Arsenal.
Yeah. Apparently just BTEC Arsenal, aren't they? But I'm looking forward to it. I'm thanking you all for joining us this evening. I know it's a late one. I'm surprised a lot of you are actually still awake. If you're not and you've got the tablet running, then morning. But yeah, thank you all for joining. As I say, Sorry, we're cutting it off early because I would have gone on for longer if I could. But at the moment, Dave is organising a prime ministerial campaign. So thank you, election campaign. It's Dave for Prime Minister, everybody. So make sure you put down hashtag vote Dave for Prime Minister, and like this video and share it, and make sure that Dave gets in over all the Conservatives. We want Dave. We want Dave, we say. And also like for more analogies as well. Goes a long way. But people, thank you all for joining. From me, Liam, Joe and Dave, it's been an absolute pleasure to bring you more football chat. And we will be back tomorrow night at 8 p.m. And also, I will just give you another clue about who our next podcast guest is going to be. Now, we've got a couple people in the pipeline, former Forest legends. Now, this one a little bit more recent, as I've said. And you gents, I don't know if you've guessed it yet, but they did actually play for Spurs as well as Forest. So I don't know if I've given too much away there. But the person who it is did play for both teams. So stay tuned. It's coming in about 3 or 4 weeks, this interview is. Yeah, Dave knows already. It's not. I've met Jermaine Genius, but who knows? That could be in the pipeline as well. I'm trying my best, everybody.
I'm not going to say it, Jamie.
Please don't say it, Dave, because I know that you already know in your many wise wisdoms. But I'm not going to comment, and there's going to be no more clues anymore. But I'm going to conclude the stream on that. So Joe, Dave, Liam, thank you for joining me. You're legends, loving you all, and means a lot to me for you all joining. So thank you very much. Door's dating sites come back, so we'll end it on that note. So Door, please stop, because at the moment they are making a hell of a lot of money and I'm getting a hell of a lot of matches with a beautiful face like this. I'm joking. Well, thank you all very much for joining, everybody. Have a great night and take care. Thank you, everyone.